Welcome back, everyone, to your professional diploma in digital marketing and SEO. The objectives for today, we're going to be looking at the impact of mobile within marketing and the user experience, the importance of mobile speed and tools to improve this, mobile-friendly landing page recommendations, and then the benefits of having an app. Now, we know how important mobile is when it comes to SEO, but in today's lesson, we are just diving into the other aspects of mobile. Just to illustrate the importance of mobile, the Boston Consulting Group did a study and they asked people what would they give up instead of their smartphones. It would be interesting for you to think about this for yourself. What would you do? In the report, it was stated that more than 3 in 10 people would stop seeing their friends in person instead of giving up their smartphones. 45% said that they would delay going on vacation. 46% would be willing to give up a day off per week. I'm not sure if I would be willing to do that. And then more than 55% would rather stop dining out for 12 months. We're going to be looking at mobile internet usage over a period of 5 years. We are looking at it from 2014 to 2019. In 2014, it started off with just 26% of total internet traffic coming from mobile. It then increased every year, as we can see, ending off in 2019 with 48%. But it has been predicted that nearly 80% of internet usage will be mobile in the next year. So that's a pretty hefty increase. And also the average conversion rates are up 64% compared to desktop. 40% of people search solely on a smartphone. 62% of organic searches provide different results on mobile versus desktop. Also, it is because Google algorithms prefer sites that are either more mobile friendly or responsive. And we're going to be going into more detail on that just now. In the war between mobile and desktop, when it comes to mobile, the user context changes frequently. So that's their location, their attention span, their connectivity, and how people even use their devices. It changes so much more than it does on desktop. Mobile users prefer short and simple interactions, and this also relates to the search terms. Those are often shorter. And mobile offers a huge source of personal data, more so than desktop. It's things like messaging, galleries, location accuracy, profile, photos, app data, etc. It might sound pretty scary, but marketing platforms aren't allowed to gather any personal data without your prior permission, and your name will never be attached to it. Mobile provides different forms of input versus a desktop mouse. On mobile, you can make a phone call, you can use a touch screen, there are keypads, so there are many different forms of input. We are going to have a look at what a responsive website is. A responsive website changes based on the device that you are using. Layouts change from multiple columns to a single one to make it easier to use on mobile. Unnecessary images are hidden. And on desktop, you can actually tell if a website is responsive by reducing the size of your browser window. If you see the content and the images and the navigation, etc. changing, then you know that it is responsive. Now, the core responsive site features are that it has dynamic content, so it means it's changing, it's not static. They have condensed menus or navigation, essentially making it easier or making it take up less space on your mobile screen. I'm sure you are all familiar with those 3 lines underneath each other. That is called a hamburger menu. Responsive sites also have optimized images. They would either change sides or they would disappear completely. It just depends on how usable it would make the website experience. Correct spacing is applied, so there's never an instance where it'll look like something weird is happening on the site. You won't see big gaps between paragraphs, spacing between words. It will all look compact and clear. And then finally, it relies on the mobile operating systems to function. It needs to be aware of the operating system so that it can respond accordingly. For example, iOS and Android. And then we have a mobile-friendly website. So it's not the same as a responsive site. A mobile-friendly site is designed to work the same way across devices. Nothing is unusable, but usable doesn't translate to optimized. Features like menu drop-downs and small buttons aren't generally used just because they're really hard to get working correctly across every single device. When it comes to core mobile-friendly features, they have static content, meaning it doesn't move, unlike the responsive site, which has dynamic content. So if you were to have a look at a website and try and reduce the browser window and nothing changes, then you know that it's not responsive. It might not even be mobile friendly, but you can at least tell if it's responsive or not. They also offer more simple navigation, and as I mentioned just now, it just makes it easier to manage across all the devices that the site is being used on because it's not responsive, and therefore you don't want any kind of complex things getting in the way and making it appear strangely. Smaller images are generally used, and it doesn't rely on a mobile operating system to function because at its core, it's really one program designed to work across multiple devices. It's not like a responsive site, which is essentially designed for each separate device. So if someone is looking at a mobile site or building a mobile site, one of the first questions would be, is it going to be responsive or mobile friendly? And what is best for that business? If you're looking at responsive, this is the superior of the two for user experience, but it does require a lot of expertise, planning, and a much larger budget. If you aren't a seasoned developer, then you would need to outsource something like this. So you would choose this option if most of your site is being viewed on mobile, and that is assuming firstly that you have a website and you're just trying to make it mobile friendly or responsive, but you would find that kind of information in your analytics reports. If you have complex content and website features that are tough to use on mobile, then responsive is the way to go if it is an actual option in terms of your budget. If you don't want to have to deal with frequent updates, although if you are having someone maintain and manage the site, then they would be doing this, but of course that would come at a cost. And then also if you want your site to look more modern for longer, and this is because you're able to do quite a bit more with a responsive site, the clean navigation, simple design, all of those things make sure that the site doesn't date as quickly. With mobile friendly, you can achieve consistency across devices, but you may not be able to add sophisticated features and functionality. Just like I mentioned, with responsive, you can do that. If you add strange menus or images that are too large, or buttons that are actually hard to click with a thumb versus a mouse, then responsive is something that you should consider instead. You can choose this option if you don't have a lot of volume to your site. Perhaps it's just starting out, or you've had a small but steady stream of traffic coming along. Then perhaps you might want to start with mobile friendly instead of responsive, with the goal of building up to responsive once you have more traffic, more revenue, I imagine, and a higher budget. Also, if you have a simple site, for example, it's just a few pages or it's not very content heavy, then mobile friendly might be absolutely fine for you. And unfortunately, mobile friendly is really your only choice if you have a small budget. Website speed is a very important factor when it comes to user experience and also rankings. And it has been found that a 1 second delay in response time can result in a 7% loss in conversions. That might seem like a small amount, but if you have a lot of volume, for example, then you're definitely going to feel that one. 20 years ago, our attention spans were about 12 seconds. They are now less than 8 seconds, and scientists believe that smartphones are a contributor to this. Poorly optimized sites can increase your PPC costs, so your search engine marketing, your paid ads, and then also decrease your SEO rankings. And this is both from the technical side and the user experience side. E-commerce sites can see up to a 20% drop in conversion rates. That is significantly higher than 7% overall, So definitely for e-commerce in particular, they need to focus on speed. Now, apart from being able to see different metrics or certain metrics in Google Analytics, there is also a free tool with Think with Google where you can find your site speed as well as other useful and actionable insights. What this tool does is it allows you to see the average number of seconds that it takes for the page to load. So you would simply insert the main domain or a particular URL that you're wanting to test. You can also benchmark your site speed against competitors, and competitors is also something that you can input yourself. You can also evaluate the impact that a faster site could have in your business. These are just some of the recommendations or insights within the tool. You can also input your advertising details and your costs, and it will evaluate the impact of that as well. So the increase in performance if you increase your site speed. And then it also gives you a great breakdown of what you need to do to optimize pages on your site in terms of speed. We'll be going through common issues around that a bit later. And then all of the above information can be generated into a report that's based on Google's analysis and then any inputs that you've made. So you can download that full report, send it on to someone, include it in a presentation, etc. To find this tool, you can just go to Google and search for Google Test My Site, and you should find the URL. So there are some common website issues which would come up with a tool like Google's. And the first one is inefficient JavaScript. Now, if you don't know what that means, it's absolutely fine. At the end of the day, this isn't a web dev or web design course. But JavaScript is a kind of language that certain websites, or rather many websites, are written in. Not just JavaScript, they often come with other languages. But if you have inefficient JavaScript, the developer needs to reduce this time spent parsing, compiling, and executing the code of your site. So again, if you are not actually developing your site, then this is something that you would send on to your developer. Now, the word parse means to analyze a specific object. So web scripts written in languages such as Perl or PHP need to be parsed on the web server. So again, when we were talking about the root domain and uploading things to the root directory, this is the same area in which this would happen. So they need to be parsed on the web server so that they can output the correct HTML to a user's browser, so that the user is receiving the correct information. Parsing can also refer to breaking up ordinary text. Then another common issue is large image sizes. If you don't compress your site images, then this will result in longer load times, as larger files naturally take longer to load. And this doesn't just apply to mobile, it's for desktop as well, or rather all devices. If an image is large, then naturally it will take longer to load, it will use more data, etc. Especially if you're on a slow machine, then it will be forever before it loads, or if there's something wrong with your phone. So this is why it's very important not to have large image sizes on your site. You would essentially compress them. And by large, I'm not talking about the length and width and all of that. I'm talking about the actual file size. So those are generally the top issues that mobile websites have. Again, it's something that the Google tool can pick up for you. Whether or not it makes sense to you is another story. And again, that's absolutely fine. It's something that you would send on to your developer. You could send them that report that you can download. But now we're moving on to AMPs, which is Accelerated Mobile Pages. Now, according to Google, it's an open source HTML framework that provides a straightforward way to create web pages that are fast, they load more smoothly, and they prioritize the user experience. Just to clarify what HTML is, just because I've mentioned it a few times, it's a standardized system for tagging text files to achieve things like font color, graphic, and hyperlink effects. So even if you aren't a developer, which I certainly am not, it is quite simple to understand. And if you actually visit the URL that you see on the screen here, it's amp.dev, then you can play around with some live code that changes the demos as you make changes. So what makes a good mobile website? When it comes to content, menus should be short. You also need to make sure that returning to the home page is simple. For example, you could include a link with go back to home. You could also hyperlink the logo as well. It is also a good idea to make it easier for people to jump to the top of your site, especially if you do have blogs or long content there. If someone is scrolling down forever while they're reading, and then they have to do the same thing just to get back up and get somewhere else, then that is quite frustrating. I'm sure you have experienced that across a few sites. Then calls to action need to be front and center. You wouldn't want to put them below the fold. And what I mean by below the fold is that it's the part of your website that you can't see when you're loading your homepage. What you're looking at before you scroll down is above the fold. And then as soon as you scroll down, that's below the fold. It is a bad idea to include pop-ups. These are also known as interstitials. If you can't get rid of them all, then please at least limit them. But there are definitely other ways of getting people to pay attention. If you have site search functionality, so people can actually search within your site, then you need to make sure that the search bar is actually visible. You also, of course, need to make sure that the search results are relevant to what someone is searching for. If someone's searching for peaches, you don't want apples to come up. Including filters is a very good idea so that visitors can use them to make their search results more granular. Let's say you're looking at a real estate site. You would want to have filters with price range, number of bedrooms, area, etc. If a search receives no results, it's a good idea to guide them back to something useful as opposed to returning a not found page. You can link back to the search function. You can recommend trying something else. You can provide contact details, etc. It's just making the user experience a lot better. For retail sites, you need to enable them to explore your site without constantly being attacked by quite aggressive CTAs like buy now, buy now. Allow them to look around and see what you have available. This is very good for the overall user experience, which, as we know, is a very important factor. Allow a guest sign in for a purchase, so don't make it compulsory for someone to create a profile. Not many people are actually comfortable with that, and would definitely choose a voluntary option versus a compulsory option. It could even be the deciding factor between choosing you and choosing one of your competitors. Pricing and stock. You need to make sure that your pricing is very clear as well as your stock availability. Again, nothing more frustrating than ordering something only to hear that it's out of stock. So make that information very visible from the get-go. High quality images. I think this goes without saying if you're in retail. You need to make sure that your website has the highest quality images while being compressed so that it is mobile friendly. Include a click to call. If someone has an issue or they're not sure of something, then for them to be able to just click a button and call someone and have someone supportive on that line will make a big difference. If possible, you need to try and make it easy for people to complete cross-device purchases. What I mean here is that many people will start to purchase on their mobile phones, but then they would want to finish it on their desktops maybe. So if you can allow that functionality or that feature to take place more smoothly, then that's fantastic. Moving on to lead gen recommendations, the first one would be streamlining. Essentially, from your landing page to the submission of the form, it needs to be a smooth experience. A good lead or a hot lead can very quickly become cold. A simple input, so don't make them click lots of buttons or check other things to just complete one form. Keep it as simple as you can. And it would make life much easier if you implemented real-time validation. So what I mean by that is when they put the email address in, it checks that it is a valid email address. When they put their contact number in, it does the same. So if the email address is incorrect or perhaps there's too many digits in the phone number, the user will be aware of that and then have the opportunity to fix it. If you have quite a few questions on your form and not all of them are compulsory, then it's a good idea to mark the ones that are so that your potential customer is aware of them. Autocomplete should definitely be enabled. Someone who is filling out multiple forms, which they generally would be if they're on the hunt for something, they could just easily input the information by choosing it from the drop-down instead of having to type it out again. This is in line with streamlining, but if you have a lead form with quite a lot of information, it would be a good idea to split that into different steps. So instead of having all your questions on one page, which could very easily put someone off, you would actually break that down and say, okay, step 1 is fill in your name, email address, and contact number. And then I'd have to select something to go to the next stage and the next stage, etc. It's just less overwhelming. And also, if you're telling them how far in they are to the process, then they're less likely to leave. So you could include, or perhaps should include, step 1 of 5, step 2 of 4, etc. Moving on to mobile apps. Apps are expected to generate $189 billion in revenue by 2021. There are more than 2.2 million apps on the Apple App Store, and there are more than 2.8 million apps on the Google Play Store. So that is a ton. 21% of millennials open an app more than 50 times a day, and the average smartphone owner uses 30 apps each month. But just to be clear, this is all apps. So if you think about the apps that you have on your phone that you didn't install, the standard ones like your clock, your settings, your memo, etc. There are 3 different kinds of apps. First, we have native apps, and these are apps that have been developed for a single mobile operating system. So it would be coded differently on Android versus an iPhone, and it would possibly look quite different as well. This is essentially the app version of a responsive site. Then we have a hybrid app, and these are built the same way for multiple operating systems. So this is like the mobile-friendly version of a website. And then there are in-browser apps, which, as the name suggests, they are opened within a browser. And essentially here, installing it really means bookmarking it. There are many benefits to a mobile app. You would firstly have increased visibility due to the fact that people can access your information at any time and with more convenience. There is also more data to improve your marketing efforts, and this comes from both a paid and organic perspective. You can accrue demographic data as well as create lists based on when customers last logged in, when they last engaged, and more. It provides value, especially if you introduce something like a loyalty program, but value can also be provided with relevant content. So it's not just limited to something like a loyalty program. It also builds on brand loyalty. If someone has been having a good customer experience across all of your channels, then they're more likely to remain loyal. It also offers increased engagement, which you can push through ads, but you can also offer something like a support desk where they could direct any queries. And another great benefit is the social features like in-app messaging, comments and sharing options. These can actually be implemented within apps. And then finally, it complements your website. While both apps and websites attract new customers, a mobile app is more likely to create customer loyalty, otherwise known as retention. So if recurring revenue is one of your main goals, then essentially you don't have a choice in the matter. And there are actually quite a lot of options these days when it comes to building an app. It used to be a lot more expensive and a lot harder to find a good quality builder, so to speak, but now there are many, many options online. So we're going to have a look at mobile marketing strategies. First up is SMS marketing. And one of the main benefits of SMS marketing is that you can reach anyone, no matter what device they have. They don't have to have a smartphone in order to get advertising from you. If you're targeting low-income households, for example, then SMS marketing should be part of your strategy without a doubt. The average open rate of an SMS is 90%, which is insanely high, and they are generally read within 90 seconds of receiving them. Then we have RCS, which is Rich Communication Services. It's something to keep an eye on. It's an advanced form of SMS in that it allows users to group chat, video, see and send high-res images, And essentially it acts like a messaging app, for example, WhatsApp. RCS has been around since about 2008, but has not yet been widely used. However, it's definitely seeing an increase in popularity. Google actually just got onto it, so it's something to keep an eye out for. With SMS marketing, you would use vanity URLs, and these are shortened URLs generally with a keyword or a brand name. Tiny.cc, that's a website. They offer a free vanity URL generator with some constraints, but check it out. If you have UTMs embedded in your URL, then any clicks as a result of that SMS will be tracked back to the SMS, which is fantastic. If you're a little bit unsure, go to tiny.cc and put in any URL just so that you can see what it changes to, and it will direct to the same thing. People are less likely to click on very long, perhaps strange looking URLs. They do prefer short and sweet ones. And the vanity URL solves that problem. So just again, the site is tiny.cc. Then we have app-based marketing. 90% of time on a smartphone is within an app. You can benefit from app install campaigns, which is an objective in many, many channels, including Google Ads, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, etc. You can also use push notifications. Now, these are different to campaigns as the notifications are sent through the app's server. So it's not actually at an additional cost. It's just additional dev or management time. Now, if we use Uber as an example, if you are ordering food or you're booking your trip, you would see a message appear on the top of your mobile in a little bar. That is a push notification. So anyone with an app can set something like that up with triggers, with different ad copy or copy rather, etc. So it's very, very useful. There are also engagement campaigns, and these are available across quite a few paid channels. They're essentially campaigns which encourage engagement. For someone that's already downloaded the app, that's perhaps not logged in for a certain amount of days, or any kind of criteria that you specify, you can then encourage them to engage with that app again. Then the next strategy that we're looking at is QR codes, and QR stands for quick response. They were declared dead 5 or so years ago, but their usage has not decreased. In fact, it has increased. When Apple released an update in 2017 that allowed in-camera QR scanning, that totally changed the game in terms of QR codes and their decline. It is projected that there will be 5.3 billion QR code coupons that will be redeemed by 2022, and 1 billion smartphones will access QR codes. QR codes also enable you to track offline to online activity. Let's say you have a restaurant and in the actual location, there's a banner with a QR code. This could be directing to online pages, but then the tracking that you would, or the UTM or parameter that you would include in that URL would track from the restaurant location, for example. Then we have location-based marketing. Now, in the SEO module, we covered this from an organic perspective, but from a paid perspective, it is particularly effective for brick and mortar stores. So again, actual businesses with offline locations, if you want to call it that. With paid advertising, you can specifically target areas within a certain radius, so you can get really accurate with that. What you could do with this is that whenever someone is in your area, you can target them with messages, with promotions or specials, which can be incredibly effective. It also complements your app-based marketing. So if you could have a campaign where it's targeting all your app engagers within specific areas around your businesses, then they will be served promotions or whatever content you've decided as soon as they are within your area. And this doesn't necessarily need to be paid. This can be a push notification. I will see you soon for lesson 2. Goodbye, everybody.